Hey everyone, so we all know how awful it is to get counterpicked in top lane, and it can feel just like an unwinnable lane up there. Top lane may be the worst matchup oriented lane, but even with heavy counters with the right game knowledge, you can easily win these matchups. Today, we're going to show you a perfect example of this, using gameplay from one of our challenger experts, McBaze. We sent him to Smurf and had him counterpick himself 3 times to show you guys how to win these tough matchups. So let's jump right into it, where McBaze is playing Poppy versus Mordekaiser in gold. Mordekaiser is notorious for beating tanks because of his passive, letting him win extended trades very easily. Morda has more wave clear than Poppy and doesn't have mana. And the cherry on top of all of that is that Poppy's W is completely useless versus Mordekaiser, so it's safe to say it's a tough matchup for her. But if we jump into the gameplay here, McBaze is going to throw his passive auto at Mord, and the shield bounces into the brush there. If we pause here, what would you be doing as Mord? Let's see what happens, then break it down. Mord uses Q on McBaze, then just walks up to get autoed near McBaze's caster minions. This was really bad by Mord for multiple reasons. The first, Mordekaiser should have walked over the Poppy shield to destroy it. But after letting McBaze grab the shield, he shouldn't be using his Q on him. It's a complete waste of an ability when the shield will eat it. On top of this, now he can't use his Q to hit the entire wave and get the push advantage for level 2. Then Mord walked up to trade an auto attack with McBaze deep in his minions, but luckily for him he cancelled it. If he hadn't cancelled, this would have resulted in Mord taking an auto from McBaze and minion damage, while McBaze would just take an auto from Mord. Anyway, McBaze collects some last hits after this, using his passive shield to grab this one since he knew Mord would look to use Q here. Since Mord wasted Q on the shield again, McBaze can freely walk up and use Q, winning the trade once again. Then Mord walks up to the wave, so McBaze uses Q, hitting Mord and these melee minions. If we pause here, what is about to happen? What mistakes is Mordekaiser making? You should know that it takes 7 minions to hit level 2, and McBaze is 1 minion away, with this melee minion really low. Mordekaiser doesn't have the push advantage because he didn't use his Q on the wave at all and kept using it on Poppy's shield. Because of this, McBaze hits level 2 and goes in. Mordekaiser runs a very interesting path to try and get away, but he gets stunned and run down for first blood. Now, we know what you're thinking. How can this Mordekaiser be gold? He's so bad. Well, most of you watching this are gold and below. You're literally in this player's rank. Mistakes like these happen constantly in every single game in these lower ranks. It's up to you to spot them and punish them. High elo players make low elo players look much worse because they punish every mistake. Alright, it's only 1 kill and Mord has TP, so the lane isn't completely over just yet. Mord TP's in and the wave is in a pretty bad spot for McBaze here. He can easily be ganked, but he can't recall or the wave will freeze and he will be forced to TP. So he's just going to focus on crashing the wave on the tower until Mord walks up to trade, using Q then E but missing both. Since both of Mord's abilities are down, McBaze can trade back using his stun and passive shield, chunking Mord very hard. Mord just isn't respecting the walls enough against Poppy and is paying the price for it. Now that Mord is low enough to kill again, McBaze is looking for a dive, but can't quite get there to do it because the wave isn't crashed yet. But while doing that, the enemy jungler shows up to gank from behind. If we pause, what should McBaze do here? Should he try to suicide to kill Mordekaiser, try to kill Kha'Zix, or try to run? The play here is to try and kill Kha'Zix because he's making a big mistake ganking top right now. The biggest reason is that a new wave is showing up, so if he tries to fight, the entire wave will aggro onto him. If we let it play, that's exactly what happens, and McBaze just barely misses the kill on Kha'Zix and escapes easily. So this was just another example of punishing low elo players for these bad plays. Most low elo players would try to run from Kha'Zix here and potentially miss a free kill. Now McBaze has basically taken the enemy jungler off the map so he can't gank anymore, which is huge in this elo. The more ganks you survive, the less likely it is that your team feeds. Anyway, at this point, do you know which way the wave is pushing? You should be able to tell it's pushing towards McBaze because of the even minion rule. When the minions are even, whichever tower the wave is closest to means it's pushing away. Mord doesn't have TP now and McBaze does. With the wave pushing like this, Mord is in a really bad spot. He's super low and he has two options: overstay and try to outplay McBaze so he can crash the wave, or just recall and lose a ton of experience and gold as the wave pushes in. Like most low elo players, Mordekaiser overstays, not wanting to recall and lose all this experience. And McBaze ends up killing him while getting executed by the tower. Now the lane is officially over, as Mord will be at least 2 levels behind with this death, as McBaze can just TP back in and let Mord's wave kill his own, denying a lot of minions. So why did this look so easy even though Mord wins the matchup? Well, Mord didn't use any of his matchup advantages. He has more wave clear and better extended trades with his passive. He didn't push and wasted his Q, letting McBaze get to level 2 first, and didn't proc his passive a single time. Alright, for this next game we have McBaze on Kale versus Wukong with Ignite instead of TP. Before we jump into it, if you're serious about improving, then you should consider signing up to skillcapped. We have the largest premium guide catalog on the internet, a direct pro coaching service, and much more. Also, if you've ever wondered how challenger players carry bad teammates in your own elo, then you'll love our Smurf commentary page. We upload tons of these full commentated games every week, and the challenger players answer all of your questions asked in the first 7 days of the video's release. Okay, so Wukong is an extremely strong top lane pick and Kale is really weak. This alone makes him a bad matchup. But Wukong wins all in very hard, and with Ignite it makes it even more difficult to survive. Kale outscales way later in the game, but let's see what happens. At the start of the lane, Wukong doesn't show up for a bit, then goes in as soon as he gets there because he was leashing red and Yi wanted to level 2 gank top. They end up trading 1 for 1 with McBaze burning his flash. Alright, so you might be thinking, well, now that McBaze has a kill, it doesn't matter that he's in a counter matchup. This is actually wrong, as this wasn't a good thing for him at all. He's in a very scary lane matchup against someone with Ignite. When going against Ignite, you normally want to trade and get them to use the Ignite, but survive and TP back in with full health. But McBaze is forced to TP back to lane and doesn't have flash versus a Wukong with all of his summoners. So he TPs in, then uses his level 2 advantage to clear the wave and get a minion advantage, while crashing the wave on the tower. It's incredibly important to do this so the wave doesn't freeze, just in case Yi comes straight back to the top lane. They both hit level 3 and Wukong jumps in. Notice how McBaze doesn't trade back auto attacks and just runs away. McBaze is letting his wave trade back for him, because if he tries to trade autos with Wu, he will lose the fight and Wukong can run him down the lane. Since McBaze crashed the tower, it's pushing back to him, so he can play nice and safe, staying out of Wukong's E range. Without the minion advantage to protect him, he can't look to trade. Alright, this is where really important stuff happens. We're going to let it play and see if you can spot Wukong's mistake. So what happened here was, McBaze knew Wukong was trying to clear the wave so he could reset, and he doesn't have TP. Because of this, McBaze was harassing a lot while Wu focused on the minions. He lost too much health and was forced to flash. The thing is, Wukong had such a big wave, all he had to do was jump in on McBaze with E and force him to back off. This would let the wave crash and give him a free recall. But since Wukong didn't abuse his wave advantage, he didn't crash the wave and it freezes, giving McBaze a huge experience advantage. This is enough to win a lane, and if we skip ahead a little to here, you can see why. McBaze hits level 6 before Wukong because of the experience advantage, and flashes on him for the solo kill. McBaze hits level 7 with the Wukong still level 5. Alright, moving on to the last game, we have McBaze on Camille versus GP. This is a GP favored matchup since he can easily disengage from Camille as she jumps in as long as GP has a barrel down. On top of this, GP has a ton of poke, and his true damage goes through Camille's passive shield. Jumping into the gameplay, we see something we have seen in the previous games too, with GP not hitting the minions at all and giving McBaze the push advantage. This is a huge mistake as GP wins level 1 really hard. His true damage passive goes through Camille's shield, and GPQ is a really short cooldown. Just by fighting Camille at level 1, Camille would be forced off the wave and GP will get the push advantage. But since he didn't, McBaze gets the push and is pushing GP off the wave instead, making sure not to let GP hit the wave. If we pause here, you should see something wrong that looks a lot like the first game. McBaze is 1 minion from level 2 and GP is walking all the way up here, not respecting it at all. This is what we mean by low elo players are making these mistakes constantly. Since GP is way out of position, McBaze kills 1 minion and goes in with his E, getting a really big chunk of GP's health. Now that McBaze doesn't have any abilities up, he goes to collect CS until his E is back up. GP is way out of position once again, so McBaze jumps in, making him blow his flash. GP can never walk up when he's level 1 and this wave is so big. Just like the other times, McBaze focuses on crashing the wave on the tower so it doesn't freeze while hitting level 3 in the process. GP got his W at level 2 and used it, so he got a decent amount of health back. But since his W is on cooldown and he doesn't have barrels, McBaze trades once under tower to chunk him a bit and then uses his passive to block a lot of the tower damage, then jumps in with E to finish him off. Xin shows up and kills McBaze right after. But McBaze has TP, so he teleports right back to lane. You should notice this is extremely similar to the first game versus Mordekaiser, where the wave is pushing towards McBaze and the enemy laner doesn't have flash or TP, so they either overstay trying to shove or recall now and lose a ton of minions. Just like last time, GP tries to push the wave, but McBaze just jumps in and kills him. Xin was still there for some reason, but McBaze kites long enough for his E to come up and escapes. And just like that, the wave is pushing towards McBaze so he can freely recall without missing CS, while GP loses at least 2 waves. McBaze ends up being 2 levels ahead again, making the lane impossible for GP. Alright everyone, so as you can see, even in difficult matchups, low elo players make way too many mistakes to make it impossible to win. You just have to punish a few of these to get a lead and snowball it from there. Alright everyone, remember, if you enjoyed this guide and want to start climbing today, then check out Skillcapped. We also have a rank up guarantee while actively using our premium service, so what are you waiting for? Thanks for watching and we'll see you next time.